Hi friends, I've got a really interesting video for you today. I'm going to compare all of the maps in Apex Legends, and you'll get to see how the new Broken Moon map compares to all the other maps in terms of the number of points of interest, and also which maps have the best and highest tier loot zones. Also, let me know what your favourite map is in the comments down below. I'm really keen to hear what you think is the best map. Let's start today with the number of points of interest for each map compared, and how that then breaks down into the tiers of loot zones. Check out this table I've made. You can see, surprisingly, Kings Canyon has the highest number of points of interest out of any map at 54, with Stormpoint in second place on 51 and Broken Moon the lowest with 26. World's Edge and Olympus are kind of somewhere in between. These numbers do include a lot of those lower tier basic connector parts of the map as well, most of which only have a couple of loot bins. And bear in mind, some of the maps do have more points of interest, as you can see with Kings Canyon and Stormpoint, but a lot of those additional points of interest are smaller in size. I'll show you the maps side by side so you can visualize this in just a minute. In terms of how this total number breaks down into the different loot tier zones, you can see Broken Moon and World's Edge have the highest number of high tier loot points of interest. Obviously, the more higher tier loot zones you have, in theory the better quality your loot is going to be across the game and across the map. Stormpoint has the lowest number of high tier loot zones, although I should say Stormpoint does have additional functionality that kind of makes up for this lower number of high tier loot zones. For example, the IMC armories, the flyers, the prowlers and the spiders. All of these give you alternative means to get higher tier loot, and therefore it kind of makes up for the lower number of high tier loot zones. Looking at mid tier points of interest, you can see Kings Canyon has the most, followed by Stormpoint, with World's Edge and Broken Moon having the lowest. So in essence, World's Edge and Broken Moon have sacrificed mid-tier loot zones to have more high-tier loot zones. Moving on to basic tier, if you look in this column you can see a big difference. Stormpoint has a massive 30 basic tier loot zones, and if you think about it, that kind of makes sense because there's so many little connecting areas across Stormpoint. Kings Canyon is in second at 18, and that's then followed up by Olympus and Broken Moon as well as World's Edge. So looking at this, you can see the disparity between loot, and I think it's fair to say you do feel this in the game as well. For example, on World's Edge I often feel like I get what I need fairly quickly. For example, the weapon I really want or the attachments I need. Whereas something like Stormpoint, if I'm not getting good weapons or attachments off drop, I always find I have to look around for a little bit to find what I need. Either that or I have to go and take on an armory or shoot some prowlers. Another interesting thing is you'll notice Olympus is kind of in the middle for all of these stats, and I guess that's probably why it feels like quite a balanced map and also why it's so popular. Anyway, that was an indicator of the number of points of interest, but of course the size of points of interest do vary as well. So let's look at all of the maps side by side and you can see how those figures transpire into visuals across the map. Now if you look at these maps together, we can think about size-wise what's the biggest and smallest, and some of this is going to be based on what the devs say because I don't have physical measurements. But in theory, based on what the devs said, Broken Moon is supposed to be a similar size to World's Edge, only slightly bigger, but nowhere near as big as Stormpoint. Stormpoint, of course, is the largest map in Apex Legends, and if you look at all of the loot zones on Stormpoint, you can really see how many there are and how spread out they are. I should say sometimes Broken Moon does feel a little bit like it is the size of Stormpoint, but I think that's mainly due to the fact that the points of interest on Broken Moon are so big compared to many other maps. And that's proven by the fact that it is supposed to be slightly bigger than World's Edge, but it has the least number of points of interest out of any map. You can also see why Kings Canyon has so many points of interest. It has a lot of those smaller points of interest that are all connected very closely, and I think that's part of the reason why Kings Canyon is third-party central. Anyway, you can use this loot guide to help you understand where the best places to drop and rotate through are in your games, and knowledge of these loot zones and areas of the map can really help you win more games. I've made a bunch of separate video guides on the best places to drop on each map on my channel, so go check those out on my channel. I hope you found this interesting though. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.